So welcome to MKTG 612 Brand Management. This is our fourth session, and in today's session, we will be looking at choosing brand elements to build brand equity. Now, in our previous sessions, we spent time to understand the foundations of brand management, ultimately dissecting the customer-based brand equity model and the various building blocks in the model that ultimately lead firms to achieve brand resonance as part of the brand development process. Now, to be able to build these blocks towards achieving brand resonance, there are certain brand elements that the firm has to select and combine. And it is those brand elements that we are going to discuss today, as well as the manner in which these brand elements are selected and utilized in marketing programs to build brand equity. Now, as usual, there are certain learning outcomes we hope to achieve by the end of the session. Today, there are 5 of them, and they include, first of all, to be able to identify the different types of brand elements. Secondly, to be able to understand the general criteria for choosing brand elements. The third one is to be able to explain the rationale for mixing and matching brand elements. And then the third one is to be able to explain the concept of debranding, which is a fairly new concept that is being discussed at length anecdotally and is yet to make its way into brand management literature significantly. However, it is important to be able to understand the discourse surrounding debranding, given that it is one of the fairly new concepts in our area, and we have to stay up to date. And then finally, by the end of the session, you should be able to understand some of the legal issues surrounding brand elements and how they are used by firms. So generally, these are the learning outcomes that we will achieve by the time the session is through. So let's get into it. What are brand elements? Brand elements, sometimes called brand identities, and brand identities because depending on the elements that the firm chooses and puts together, they end up becoming the means by which that particular brand is identified. And therefore, we also refer to brand elements as brand identities, because of the explanation that I just gave. So brand elements or brand identities, we say, are those trademarkable devices that serve to identify and differentiate the brand. So ultimately, regarding the choice of brand elements, the main aim of a firm in selecting specific brand elements and combining them in the manner that they decide is to be able to trademark their specific product offering, to be able to identify it in the marketplace, and ultimately to be able to differentiate it from those of their competitors, whom they will usually be competing with in the same sector or industry. So with that understanding, we are saying that the customer-based brand equity model is suggesting that marketers should choose these brand elements to achieve the following: 1, enhance brand awareness; 2, facilitate strong, favorable, and unique brand associations; and then 3, elicit positive brand judgments and feelings. And by the time the firm is able to select the brand elements and achieve all these benefits that the customer-based brand equity model is saying they should, they are able to achieve the ultimate or the apex of the customer-based brand equity model, which Nuruddin graciously told us was brand resonance. So ultimately, we can see that with each of the benefits that have been presented before us, we can see semblances of the customer-based brand equity building blocks being presented with each of the benefits that the firm is achieving as they go along. So for instance, when we talk about enhancing brand awareness, which building block of the customer-based brand equity model does it relate to?
Identity.
Which building block of the customer-based brand equity model? Manaf, you are off.
Salience.
Good, brand salience, right? Again, when we talk about facilitating strong, favorable, and unique brand associations, which building blocks are we referring to? Which building blocks are we referring to when we talk about facilitating strong, favorable, and unique brand associations? Mida?
Imagery.
And then?
Performance.
Good. Right, so imagery and performance. Well done, Mida. And then when we talk about eliciting positive brand judgments and feelings, this one is pretty straightforward, isn't it? Which building blocks are we referring to?
Judgments and feelings.
Exactly. Right? So we can see that the building blocks are all here. And these are the 5 building blocks that ultimately lead us towards achieving the apex of the pyramid, where we have the ultimate building blocks, of brand resonance, right? So in essence, in selecting these brand elements and combining them in the way that firms do to identify themselves and differentiate their brand, they are basically doing what the customer-based brand equity purports that they must be doing to be able to achieve brand equity in the form of achieving brand salience, building performance and imagery, as well as judgments and feelings to be able to ultimately earn brand resonance with their target audience. So with that being said, there are several types of brand elements. However, the main types of brand elements that we can distinguish from brand management literature include the brand name, logos and symbols, the slogan, URLs, characters, packaging, and then jingles. Now we are going to take each of these main types of brand elements one after the other and dissect them, starting from brand name, which is the first and most popular of all the brand elements. So when we talk about brand name, what is in the name? Brand name captures the central theme or key associations of a product in a compact and economical fashion, right? Meaning that however the brand name is designed, it should be able to capture the central theme of what the organization is about and the key associations to whatever product offering it is that they are putting out for the target audience. And this is because the target audience, being the customers, can notice the brand name, register its meaning, and activate it in their memory, all in just a few seconds. Which is why brand name has earned its reputation as one of the most fundamental, first, and most pervasive brand elements. Because it's very easy for the customer to record it or register it in their memory and then activate it in any consumption situation. And because of that, we say that it's an extremely effective shorthand means of communication, given its efficacy when it comes to its ability to remain in the memory of the customer and to be activated at the point of need, right? And because of its ability to be registered quickly in the mind of the customer, it is very difficult for marketers to change a brand name once it has been established in the mind of the customer. So when formulating a brand name, firms have to be very careful, because once the name is out there and it's entrenched in the mind of the customer, it is almost impossible to change. That is why you realize that when firms say they are rebranding, rarely do they change their name. True or false?
True.
Yeah. They almost never attempt changing their name. They can change all elements surrounding the name and other brand elements like their colors and certain symbols and signs, but the name is almost always impossible to change, and this is why. So when it comes to brand name, it is very important for the firm to take the necessary steps to ensure that the name that they are selecting is one that does justice in terms of presenting the key theme of their business and communicates their key associations, right? So in that case, we say that selection of a brand name is both an art and a science, because you can't just pick any name at random. In as much as you're being creative about it, you also have to think scientifically regarding the consequences of the name and what is in that name and what that name could potentially mean to your target audience and the various interpretations and perceptions that it could bring to it, all contributing to the artistic and scientific nature of the brand name selection process. And because of this artistic and scientific process, brand names come in many different forms. However, for the purposes of brand management research, there are 5 types of brand names that can be identified. And these are put together into what we refer to as the brand name taxonomy. So when we talk about the brand name taxonomy, there are certain forms in which brand names should come in respect of this taxonomy. The first one is when the name is descriptive. And this is where we can say the name is descriptive of the product function which the organization is trying to sell to their audience. So for instance, in terms of descriptive names, you can talk about Eddie's Pizza, isn't it? Does Eddie's Pizza tell us the descriptive function of their product?
Yes, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pizza.
It's pizza, which is food people eat. Again, Vodafone is an acronym representing voice, data, and telephone. Does that tell us the descriptive product function? Does it describe the function of Vodafone's products?
Yes, please.
Exactly, because they provide voice services, they provide data services, and they provide telephone services. So that's a typical example of examples, if you may, of descriptive brand names that describe the product function which the organization or firm is trying to sell to their target audience. Again, in terms of brand taxonomy, we can talk about evocative names, which are evocative of certain features. So for instance, if I say Best Point Savings and Loans, what does it evoke in terms of the features of their product?
Savings and loans.
Savings and loans.
No, evocative. We're talking about features. Think like marketers. Savings and loans is more descriptive. But when you add the best points to it, and you say best point savings and loans, it's evocative of something.
Yeah, my credibility.
But off the top of your head, literally, what are they saying with that name?
That they are the best.
That they are the best.
Good, they are the best at what?
Savings
and loans.
Thank you. Right, very straightforward, isn't it? Let's do the next one. Abrantier the gentleman.
Clothing.
Is evocative of what?
Being a gentleman when
You saw with them. Yeah.
Good. So it means clothing meant for a gentleman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. What about Acacia clothing?
Wear. Ladies wear. Ladies wear.
No, but what is it evoking?
Being a lady when you wear their clothes.
Good. Because Acacia in Ghanaian parlance is for a lady, isn't it? And a lady in Ghanaian parlance, when they say a lady, is an Acacia.
Like polished.
Polished, well-bred, well-trained. Same for Abrantier. It's a gentleman that is well-mannered, polished, well-trained. So it's telling you good, right? So these are the features that they are trying to evoke by selecting these brand names. I hope you are getting the trend here.
Yes.
Good. Good. So that is for the evocative aspect of brand taxonomy. Next, we can talk about personality-wise, right? And this is where the brand name is just meant to convey personality. And Snapple is a typical example. Snapple is a brand name that is meant to convey a personality of excitement and energy.
Snapple.
Good. Right? Any other examples of brands that connote personality traits?
Apple and Eve.
Pardon? Yeah.
I would say Apple and Eve.
Apple and Eve. Okay, so what does it connote? What personality does it connote? What personality would Apple and Eve connote, Ikea?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Apple and Eve.
Okay, while you're thinking, any other examples? Okay, we'll come back to that, but keep thinking about it, right? So that is for personality, right? Next, in terms of brand taxonomy, we can also talk about synthetic brand names. And these are basically brand names that are made up. So they don't have any origins in any words, or they are not a combination of any words or evocative of any features. They are just made up. Like Kodak. Kodak is a name that was made up by the founder of the brand because he liked the letter K and he wanted a word that would be concise and be easy to recall and remember. So he went for Kodak. The same for Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs is not necessarily a word. It's a made-up word by a couple who were living in Europe who were trying to introduce an ice cream brand that they wanted to become catchy and become popular, right? And you'll notice something very unique about the name that makes it European. What do you think it is? There is something about the name of the brand that makes it European. Who has spotted
is it
it?
the double symbol at the top of the first A?
Good, right? That letter appears in a lot of European words, isn't it? From different countries in Europe.
And names. Yeah.
Good, and names, right? So Haagen-Dazs is a made-up word. Has anyone eaten Haagen-Dazs before?
Nope, but I hear the reviews are nice.
It's an excellent ice cream brand. What about Ben & Jerry's? Has anyone tried Ben & Jerry's?
Yeah.
So if you've tried Ben & Jerry's, think about Haagen-Dazs as the older brother of Ben & Jerry's.
But then it'll be very nice. Thanks.
Yes, it will. And it's.
I've tried.
Ipia, you tried which one? Ipia, I can't hear you. Your voice is far away. The Ben & Jerry's, yeah. Yeah, Ben & Jerry's is more common in Ghana than Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very good ice cream brand, which has earned its brand equity over the years, right? So that is for synthetic brand names in terms of the brand taxonomy. Then finally, we can talk about brand names that are linked to the founder. So these names are usually designed to reflect the founder of the brand, right? So in Ghana, we famously know of Osei Kwame Despite, right? Who is the founder of the Despite Media Group. That's a very popular example that we can use.
Yes.
Good. Then we know of Michael Dell, who was the founder of Dell Computers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. Another example is Adolf Dassler, also known as Adi Dassler, who is the founder of Adidas.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Wow.
Right? So these are all brand names that reflect the names of their founders. So in future, if you are hired as a brand consultant or a marketing consultant and you're being asked to break down some of these brand names and do a brand revitalization, or a brand wants to hire you to set up an entirely new identity for it, these are the considerations you should make when it comes to creating a brand name, right? The brand name taxonomy should be your first point of call. Now, brand name, like I said, is so pivotal to the branding process that firms cannot afford to get it wrong. And there have been several examples in the past where firms have undertaken the brand naming activity, and they have done so very expertly that it has resulted in great success that has affected not just their activities as a brand, but also the activities of other brands and companies in their sector of operation. And a typical example of a founder or a firm that took the brand naming concepts to the next level and has made significant brand equity as a result is Leveons, who is responsible for inventing the name chocolate diamonds. And I'm going to show you a video case of the story behind Leveons chocolate diamonds, and you will be able to see how powerful a name can be when it comes to the building of brand equity. Clancy says Kanye West easy. Good. That's another a typical example of how a name can spearhead a whole revolution. Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand. Excellent. That's another typical example of how the Jordan brand was born, right? And it is still maintaining its brand equity to date, right? So before we go into watching the video case, it seems Equia has a question. She says, can Apple and Eve qualify for sophistication under the personality? I wouldn't say sophistication, because when people think about Eve and an apple, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Adam and Eve.
Obedience.
Deception.
Deception, confusion, right? Clancy says the fall of man. Oh my God. All I'm trying to say is that it doesn't necessarily connote something positive, right? So I don't even know why they decided to name a children's drink Apple and
Yes.
Eve. Right? I still today don't understand the thought process behind that naming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But dog, their juices are nice. So
Their
probably
juices are
maybe they
nice.
have-
Or maybe
Yeah.
they were trying to link the fruits that they use in their juices to the
Yes.
Garden of Eden.
That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe. But the choice of Apple and Eve, see, do you see the words that are coming up in the chat?
The classic says
Temptation,
seduction.
seduction, deceit, right? So
Yes.
the negatives are shrouding the effect of the positives, isn't it? Exactly.
But seduction is actually accurate.
Yes, it is, right? And for
Temptation, you're
children's
tempted
drink,
to try it out. I mean,
yes,
it's very nice.
but
I keep
seduction
going
does
to
not
all needs to buy
necessarily.
some.
Yes, but you see, you are interpreting it that way, but it will not necessarily be interpreted in that positive manner, isn't it? Because remember,
Yes.
the seduction came after all the other ones, the temptation, the deceit. Do you get it? And that is a no-no when it comes to brand naming. You do not want there to be so much controversy surrounding your naming. It messes with the brand associations in the mind of the consumer. Remember, we talked about the fact that brands reside in the mind and the words of the consumer, the heart. So if you are using a name that is creating so much confusion, the consumer mind will generally move on to something that is less psychologically stressful. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yes, though.
Good, right? So you want a brand name that is a clean break, a brand name that everyone will automatically get from the beginning. Please, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Yes, though.
Good. So let's quickly look at the story behind Leveons chocolate diamonds. And I want you to pay very close attention to the details of this video case because it will make you marvel. Marvel in terms of how powerful a name can be when it comes to building and establishing brand equity. Right? So let me quickly share the video. Can you see the screen?
Yes, dog, we can.
Good.
I mean, I
Let's
can.
listen to the story behind Leveons chocolate diamonds, and then we will discuss.
$1,000 chocolate diamond necklace to the 2018 Grammys. And these chocolate diamond earrings that J-Lo likes to borrow? Just over $16,000. But it wasn't that long ago when brown diamonds would have never made the red carpet, selling for 6 times less than they do today. So what changed? Why are chocolate diamonds so expensive? Diamonds get their color by how they're formed. Whether it was a different element that got pulled into the carbon structure, like boron, which gives diamonds a beautiful blue hue. Maybe it was close to a natural source of radiation, making them appear green. Whatever the reason, diamonds come in a rainbow of bright, beautiful colors. And then there are brown diamonds. For centuries, brown diamonds were cheap. They were typically low in quality and had lots of imperfections. So jewelers didn't want them, especially when they could use brighter pink, blue, or yellow diamonds. Instead, brown diamonds were used as tools, drill through rocks and cut glass. But in 1986, Argyle Mine opened. Today, it produces more diamonds than any other mine in the world, most of them being brown diamonds. And while it's been said that the quality of Argyle stones is not equal to their quantity, companies have still managed to find a market. One company in particular being Leveons Corp.
We found these beautiful, natural, fancy colored brown diamonds that were coming out of the Argyle mine of Australia that were quite underappreciated.
That's Eddie Leveons. He is the CEO of Leveons Corp. Leveons trademarked the name Chocolate Diamonds in 2000, giving it a monopoly on the market for these particularly named brown diamonds. Soon after this rebranding, Chocolate Diamonds took off. Google searches for chocolate diamond went from virtually zero in 2007 to 400,000 in 2014. And the more popular they became, the more value they earned.
The price of chocolate diamonds has risen more than threefold in this period of time.
In the 80s and 90s, quality brown diamonds were worth about $1,500 per carat. But now, many sell for up to $10,000 per carat. And the price of larger stones has risen even more, by as much as 25 times. Leveons isn't the only company that has tried to rebrand brown diamonds. Jewelers like Zales have called them other names like champagne, cognac, and cappuccino. But chocolate was the name that really took hold. Given its success, we asked Eddie how the name came about.
The name of chocolate, many people think, oh yeah, because these are brown, so they put chocolate. But the reality was, there was a friend of mine, Bill Furman, who used to come every day after work and visit me, and he would always bring me artisan chocolates, and he would always talk about special powers of chocolate, how its health benefits, how it's an aphrodisiac, and I started to understand how chocoholics are passionate to the food chocolate. And so when we did the branding of Chocolate Diamonds, we really intended to tie in to the passion that people have, the obsession that people have to the food chocolate.
Leveons says just 4% of brown diamonds meet its criteria. Diamond needs to fall within a specific shape, between C4 and C6 on the industry's color scale. So more like a milk rather than a dark chocolate. Once the right stones are ready, it's time to make jewelry, which ups the total cost. To get a closer look, we visited the jewelry company Suna Bros of NYC.
Many years ago, diamond cutters began to experiment with different ways of placing the facets on these diamonds so that they didn't appear overly dark, and it allowed light to penetrate and reflect back, which gave all of these wonderful sensations.
But chocolate diamonds may become harder to come by in the near future. There's been talk that Argyle Mine is running out of diamonds. However, John doesn't think that will stand in the way of their growing popularity.
It would seem, even at a point where Argyle may no longer be mining, that the groundwork has been laid, that the interest in a range of colored diamonds now exist, and certainly that for brown diamonds, I think will sustain and probably only grow more.
Okay. Are we there, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, please.
Great. So what did we gather from the Leveons diamond case in terms of brand naming? Please raise your hand if you have something to say. I'll give you the opportunity and then you can go ahead. So we are taking your thoughts. What do you think about the brand naming process and the effects that it had on brand equity building? Yes, Equia, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Doc. So what I gathered was the reason why he used the name chocolate was because of the benefits that chocolate lovers come with.
Good. meaning that in terms of building brand associations, it will be very easy for him to create that association between chocolate, diamonds, and chocolates, isn't it?
Stock.
Good, which will make it very easy for the potential target audience, being the customer, to buy into the idea of chocolate diamonds and their worth. Very good observation, Ikuya. What else?
Thank you.
What else did you observe, ladies and gentlemen? Is that all you saw? There was so much to be seen. Lawrence. Lawrence, tell us what you saw from the video in terms of brand naming and building brand equity.
Hello.
Yes, I'm listening, Lawrence.
My observation was also quite similar to what Cynthia said, associating people's love for chocolate to the
That's
love
not
for
the
the
only
diamond.
thing that was in the video, Lawrence. Tell us something else, because there was a lot in that video.
Dog.
Yeah, Ekuya, please, I've seen your hand. Don't worry. I'll come back to you. I need to hear some people. Lawrence, turn the microphone back on. We are not moving on until you give me an answer. Turn the microphone back on. You watched the video. Everybody watched it. So tell us something else you saw in the video, because there was a lot to see.
Okay. I think that Leveons took something which was quite unique, something which people didn't really place value on, positioned it in such a way that it gained some brand value.
Good. So until Leveon went ahead to identify and create that brand name, people really did not attach much importance to chocolate diamonds.
Yeah.
Good. Lawrence, was that so hard?
No, Doc.
Okay. So thank you. Very good observations. Ekuya, go ahead. You have something else to say?
Yes, I think it was similar to what Lorraine said. I was saying that if you watch the video, I think there was a part he did some little statistics about 2007, where
Good.
the value was 0.
Good.
But then
The Google
as
searches were 0.
Yeah, but
Good.
there was an increase to
Good.
400,000. So which means they picked what people didn't really value
Good.
and then made it into something people actually value now.
Good. But there's something interesting in the video that I don't believe you all noticed, which is a testament to the process of brand building. Let me see if someone can tell me. Nuruddin, go ahead.
My observation is that when the science of the branding, when you do it right, just like the man said, even if you are the brown diamond is depleted, you can still use the name you have created to do anything, the goodwill of the name, to be able to bring other forms of diamonds.
Good.
Whilst you are earning huge, just
Good.
like the brown diamond.
Good.
And then he also mentioned something about the enthusiasm of the chocolate lovers that he has transferred to the brand.
Good. Brand
and so
association.
It's like people who are associated with it have a certain kind of attachment. Like it's a kind of attachment that the pride of having it.
Yeah. Exactly, Nuruddin. Very good. Now here is a hidden part of the video case that I don't believe you all saw. Now, from what Ekia told us, you remember they said in 2007, Google searches for chocolate diamonds were 0, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. But then it took off after that. Now, here's the trick. When did they say Leveons registered the chocolate diamond name?
In 2000.
Good. Now you realize that when he registered the name, it took him some time for the name to catch on, didn't it?
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
please.
So just coming up with the name does not mean that it will automatically become a success or that it will automatically create a brand. Because I'm sure between the year 2000 when he registered the trademark and when chocolate diamonds appeared in Google searches, he was actively engaging in marketing programs in the background to ensure that the chocolate diamonds take on, isn't it?
True.
Good. To the point of loaning it out to celebrities to wear on the red carpet. Did you hear that part? Did you hear that part?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Right? So that is a testament to the brand building process, confirming what we have been discussing regarding the customer-based brand equity model, that you need to successfully go through the various stages of the pyramid and actively pursue each of the building blocks to be able to create that brand equity that you are looking for. And even though it took Leveons some time to do that, they have managed to do that successfully. And it has spurred a whole new industry built around this one offering, with Leveons being the market leaders, which is a great testament to the power of a brand name, isn't it? And this is all as a result of the name Chocolate Diamonds, isn't it?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Which once again cements the position of brand name as the first and most pivotal of the brand elements. Francis, your hand is up. Go ahead. Francis, you are speaking, but we cannot hear you. So can you please work on your sound or type it into the chat section? Francis, your line is breaking. We still can't hear you. So I don't know if you can reposition yourself or just type it into the chat and then I'll read it out. We still can't hear you, Francis. No, it's not clear at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so please type it in the chat, okay? And then I'll read it out. Okay.
Okay, all right.
All right, okay. So that is for brand name being the first brand element, right? Now, the next brand element we are going to talk about is logos and symbols, right? Now, logos and symbols are usually the next elements to be discussed after brand name. And they are the visual elements that serve to indicate the origin, ownership, or association of a brand. Now, you will notice that this has become very pervasive in our current dispensation, such that even outside of marketing products and services, individuals are now developing their own logos and symbols, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. To the point where couples have developed their own logo and symbol, which they end up using during their weddings as part of their wedding stationery design and all that, all to indicate some kind of ownership and association, right? And this philosophy began in marketing, where it was being applied to actual products and services. Now, with that understanding, logos range from corporate names or trademarks, right, which could be either in word with text only or in non-word form. And it is the non-word form of these logos which come in the form of symbols. right? And other forms of artifacts. It's what we call symbols. Sorry, I've already used the word symbols, but generally that is what they are, right? So any logo that is not in text form, but is in the form that involves various lines and shapes, is what we refer to as symbols. And these are usually written in a distinct form. Sometimes they could be in the form of certain letters put together, like in the case of GCB, ADB. You realize that these logos are largely made up of text or letters, isn't it?
Yes.
Good, right? Or we have some logos that come in the form of abstract designs that may be either completely unrelated to the corporate name or corporate activities of the organization, or directly related to the corporate activities of the organization, right? So these abstract designs or symbols can be referred to in the cases of organizations like CBG. What is the symbol in the CBG logo?
An eagle.
The symbol in the CBG logo.
They are four hands holding each other.
Good. And then there's another symbol in the middle there.
I think there's a cowpea.
Yes, from afar it looks like a cowpea, but when you get close, you notice that it's an Idinkra symbol. It's the Nkonson Idinkra symbol. Right, Lawrence? Have you seen the Nkonson Idinkra symbol before?
Yeah.
I have seen it, yes.
Good, right? So that is an Nkonson. From afar, it looks like a cowpea. But when you get close, you see that it's the Nkonson symbol, right? So it's the four hands holding each other and the Nkonson symbol. So that is the symbol of CBG, or their logo, which is made up of these abstract designs we have talked about, as well as the letters. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, please.
That's good.
Yes,
so we are saying that just like we talked about the brand name and how it can be used to distinctively identify a particular brand and their offering, logos and symbols can also be very distinctive and help us to be able to recognize specific brands and their offerings and distinguish them from those of competitors, right? So Francis is in with his comment and he says, Leveons adopted both evocative and founder combined, and it worked successfully for them by his observation, right? So very good, Francis, right? Because it was Leveons chocolate diamond, and no one could use the name chocolate diamond after Leveons took it up. So they were using other names like champagne diamond, which is very reflective of the brand name taxonomy we talked about when it comes to the evocative dimension and the founder dimension. So very good, Francis. Very good comment. All right, so back to our discussion on logos and symbols. So like I said, logos and symbols, just like the name, are very distinctive and can help us to be able to immediately identify a particular brand offering in its category and pick it out and recognize it based on the strength of the associations that have been formed in our minds as a result of those symbols and designs and how they have been linked to the particular brand and their offering. So with that understanding, let's do a bit of logo and symbol trivia. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
Good. Let's see if you can identify the brands that these symbols and logos belong to, right? Starting from this one. Which brand does this symbol belong to?
Timberland.
Yes, Timberland. Very good. Isaac Owusu said Timberland as well. So you're right, Timberland, right? And what do you know Timberland for?
Boys know their boots.
Yeah, the Tims. And I like the female Tims as well.
The boy.
I like the female Tims as well.
Yeah.
They are really cool. And they come in very fancy colors. Yeah, right? So that's Timberland. Let's try another one. Which one is this one? Which one is this one? You should know this.
Rolex.
It's Rolex. Very good, Isaac. Today, Isaac, have you taken over from Bafo?
Yeah, Bafo couldn't join.
Yeah, so Isaac has taken over for him. We are in very good company today.
No, so
right?
Isaac is
Rolex. Right? Let's do another one. What about this one?
Unilever.
Never. If you didn't even know, I would have been so shocked at all of you. Right? So that's Unilever. And then let's do one more.
Johnny
Walker.
Johnny Walker. Right?
Johnny Walker.
So these logos and symbols have been so pervasive, right? Based on the nature of the marketing programs that the brands in question put together, such that we have come to synonymously mention the brand names in every scenario where we see these logos and symbols, which is a testament to the power of logos and symbols if they are appropriately utilized in the brand building process, right? Which brings me to the issue of debranding. Now, debranding first came to light when an opinion piece was written and published in Bloomberg. You know Bloomberg? Have you heard of Bloomberg, the news outlet?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
So an opinion piece was published in Bloomberg regarding debranding, and it was as a result of an observation that had been made by this particular journalist that had been making the rounds among a lot of the major brands, particularly in the United States. And it was because in recent years, most of these major brands that we are talking about had, in one way or another, stripped down their traditional logos and symbols and made them look more simplistic, right? So in his mind, he chose to refer to this phenomenon as debranding, where he was trying to refer to the fact that these brands are shedding detail and depth out of their traditional brand logos that we know and moving more towards simplistic and flat logos and symbols. And he gave several reasons for which he thought this was happening. And I have highlighted a number of them which stood out to me for us to discuss in this forum. However, I've included the link to the article in the slide. So once you get them, feel free to go to Bloomberg Opinion and read more about this concept of debranding and why he is seeing it as the new trend when it comes to brand management. So what are the reasons he's giving for this concept he refers to as debranding? Now, the first reason he gave was that the firms wanted to professionalize more in terms of their brand design. And this is because, in his opinion, overly detailed logos are felt to be more cartoonish and antiquated, right? Which is not so appealing to the current dispensation of customers that firms are dealing with. Because remember, most of these logos were developed at a time where a lot of the traditional media was still being highly used, right? And the consumers of that time were not as sophisticated as the consumers of now. Would you agree?
Yes.
Good. So in their minds, those old designs appealed to a different set of consumers who were not as sophisticated and were not judging so many different aspects of their presentation. So this debranding that the writer is referring to is meant to professionalize their brand and make it more suited to the current dispensation of sophisticated customers, given that the stakes are higher for them now, right? And their brands have to be able to mature to meet the current group of sophisticated customers at their point of need. So they decided to shed the more cartoonish and antiquated brand logos for more corporate and sophisticated logos, from flamboyant to flat, and then from wacky to bland, which in their opinion help to illustrate their professionalism as brands, right? So let's look at some examples of these brands that they are talking about, and let's judge to see if indeed this professionalization is what is happening here. So these are three different brands whose logos have evolved over the years to become more professional. Now, the logos we see on the extreme right are the current logos that are in use. And the logos we see on the extreme left are what they started out with several years ago. Now, considering the different corporations, let's start from the first one, being Foursquare. Are they indeed portraying this professionalism that they are saying is the bedrock of this debranding process they have embarked on? Would you agree that the brand logo is now more professional than it was in the beginning? For Foursquare, would you agree? Okay, Isaac also says he agrees.
Yes, though.
Mida, you also agree? Okay. What about Airbnb?
Yes, though.
What about Airbnb? Airbnb started out with the name Air Bed and Breakfast. Would you agree that their current logo is more professional?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Google?
Yes.
Very obvious.
Very obvious, isn't it? And finally, GoDaddy. What about GoDaddy?
Yes.
Yeah. GoDaddy's is the most of a step up out of the four. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So based on this, I think we will agree with the professionalization drive for debranding, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, though.
Good. Okay, Lawrence, go ahead.
Yes. Look, I observed that most of them, indeed, actually all of them.
Lawrence, I cannot clearly hear what you're saying.
Am I more audible?
Hello, Lawrence.
Yeah, hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So I was saying that I observed that with most of them, the professionalism with the change in font.
Good.
It seems like the previous fonts.
Good.
They seem like they were joking.
Yeah.
So there are some fonts which elicit a feeling.
Lawrence, can you repeat the word you just used? You said with the previous fonts, it seemed like they were what?
They're being childish.
Childish, right? I think you also used the word they were joking, isn't it? Good, right? Which is exactly the reason for what the writer is saying the debranding is all about, isn't it? Lawrence, please go ahead. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah, so that's about it. I personally like to type in Century Gothic.
Yeah.
I'm not very fond of Times New Roman.
Yeah.
And we change fonts, it changes the outlook of the whole document.
That's true.
Observing that's what most of them did.
That's very true.
That's a big step up. Yeah.
Very big step up. I agree with you, Lawrence. Right? So excellent observations. Generally, when it comes to calligraphy and writing, sans serif fonts are generally, especially when it comes to the design of logos and symbols, and even the design of websites and online platforms, sans serif fonts are seen to be more professional and easier to work with, right, than the serif fonts, right? So very spot on, Lawrence. Excellent observations, right? So in essence, we agree with the first reason for this debranding drive, which is to professionalize, right? Now let's look at another reason they gave. The second reason was to escape limiting toxic and troublesome identities. Now, this is because a lot of brands have in the past faced some form of backlash, right? Which has had a direct effect on their identity. Now, the origin of this backlash is sometimes a key player in their initial brand design in terms of their choice of brand elements. So sometimes to be able to make a clean break from these troublesome identities that they have been tagged with over the years, they embark on rebranding activity to try and take out these elements of their branding that is symbolic of this identity they are trying to escape. So a typical example is British American Tobacco, right? And before, the full name was British American Tobacco, but even though the acronym was BAT, they were not using it. But when they started facing backlash in the era where lung cancer became a global pandemic and people were largely being discouraged from smoking, They wanted to dissociate themselves from the direct observation of the word tobacco in their name, which directly connotes the contribution to the cancerous nature of whatever product it was that they were selling. So they decided to change their name from British American Tobacco to BAT, and then add the tagline, "A Better Tomorrow," to their logo. So this is what they ended up with. And this was done in 2010, right? So they went from a logo that said British American Tobacco and had the tobacco leaves in it to BAT with some 2 curves at the top and then "A Better Tomorrow" at the bottom. Now, the first time I saw this logo without the British American Tobacco, I honestly thought it was for a telecommunication company.
The better tomorrow. No.
The better tomorrow is even worse. Can you imagine? Yes, right? But when you first see it, your mind does not go to British American Tobacco, does it? That's not the first thing that pops into your mind. The first thing that comes into your mind is something else. Like I said, when I saw the new logo, I thought it was for a telecommunication company, until I saw that it is the rebranded form of British American Tobacco's logo. Right? Isaac says Azankwa, but that's marketing in general. Marketing creates a narrative and promotes the narrative until their target audience believes that narrative. So to date, women still believe that anti-aging creams can make them stop aging to a large extent. That's the power of marketing, Isaac. So we wouldn't call it as we will call it marketing. Right? And a similar thing happens. Right, Nuruddin, you said?
It's seduction. Just like they were able to confuse you to think it is for maybe some networks company or something.
Exactly. Right.
Looking at the 2 lines up there, looks more like some airline piece.
Exactly. So you think it's an airline or a telecommunication company, or your mind will not come to tobacco. So whatever objective they had for the debranding, it's been achieved, if you ask me. They've managed to mask that toxic nature of the brand. The same happened with Kentucky Fried Chicken, or KFC. Before, the logo on the left is what they had, until the era where obesity became a problem in the United States. And it was largely attributed to the huge consumption of fried foods, right, in the form of fast food. So KFC had to rebrand and remove the word fried from their logo. And that is how they ended up with the logo on the right, being KFC. So again, we can see that KFC managed to escape the tag of the word fried in their name by just rebranding and changing their logo from Kentucky Fried Chicken, the words, to KFC, the acronym, with the face of Colonel Sanders. Right. Isaac, you said Apple computers changed to Apple. The reason why they changed from Apple computers to Apple was not to professionalize or to escape any toxic identity, but it could be more for the third reason that they gave for debranding, which is to create a brand portal. Now, when we say a firm is creating a brand portal, it means that they are creating a brand identity that they can exploit for multiple purposes. Right? So when a firm creates a brand portal by debranding, they are using a new brand that they have created out of the debranding effort as a portal which they can project to an infinite range of messages and moods. So you realize that Apple has an infinite range of products that they are selling to different groups of customers under the Apple name, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Good. And we are still waiting for the Apple Card. So you realize that by changing to just Apple from Apple computers, they have that flexibility to spread it across multiple product categories, right? And this goes for other brands as well that have debranded, especially those brands that span multiple genres, for instance, when we talk about movies, and then those that offer a range of offerings, like Apple and food companies, and those that aspire to hands-on consumer engagement, like political campaigns and politicians. Right? A typical example is Hillary Clinton's brand symbol when she was running for US president. And you will notice that all of these have been highlighted and dissected in the Bloomberg opinion piece that I'm talking about, right? So for Warner Brothers, for instance, when they debranded to the Shield, you will realize that their previous brand that they had was more sophisticated than this, isn't it? They had a lot of depth and a lot of lines and shapes going on in the logo with different colors. But once they stripped it down, they've been able to extend it and spread it to incorporate various identities with regard to the different movies and TV shows, as well as merchandise that they produce in relation to the same, right? And you can see the multiple themes that they are being able to utilize their brand logo for. Lawrence says, does Cowbank fit in this reason, moving from an Afrocentric or specifically Ghanaian logo to something which could thrive in foreign markets too? Exactly. That's creating a portal. So another good example, Lawrence. Right? So these are the three main reasons that I thought were noteworthy that we should discuss in class regarding the upcoming concept of debranding. Right? And like I said, the link is here. So you can use the link to go and read the article once you get the slides to be able to get further insights into why the writer is pushing for the debranding agenda. Even though several scholars have argued that maybe the term debranding is not the most appropriate to refer to this phenomenon that we are experiencing, since in their minds, debranding largely refers to taking away some element of the brand, not more of refining it, right? But like I said, the discussion is still ongoing, and I'm really excited for how the discourse is going to progress, given that the writer has a lot of valid arguments for the points that they make. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, Doc.
Yeah. So that is for debranding, right? So moving on, we have talked about brand name and we've talked about logo and symbol. Now let's talk about slogan, right? And we say slogans are short phrases that communicate descriptive or persuasive information about the brand. And they function as useful hooks or handles that help consumers to grasp the meaning of the brand, right? And sometimes in grasping the meaning, they will try and add certain product-related messages to the slogan to help customers form unique associations between the slogan, the brand's meaning and its message, and the specific product offering in their minds. Sorry, Isaac said GCB Bank. Good. So GCB Bank is another example of the brand portal. Okay, thank you, Isaac. So you said everywhere you go as well. Okay, yes, that's an example of a slogan which belongs to another brand, isn't it? Good. So essentially, we are saying that slogans are an indispensable means of summarizing and translating the intent of the firm's marketing program. Because everything that the firm is engaging in by way of their marketing programs to try and persuade the customer can be summarized into a few short words or phrases in the form of a slogan, which would always be attached to the brand name and sometimes come in conjunction with the brand logo and symbol as well. So usually when it comes to firm branding, if at all you cannot see other brand elements, these three core brand elements will always be present in the form of a brand name, a brand logo and symbol, and a brand slogan, isn't it? Good. So in that case, Alima says, good, that's for this way. And that's a typical example of what we are saying regarding the product-related message and meaning, isn't it? So by saying it means that when you buy this way, all you need is what? Hot water. Unlike other brands where you will need other accoutrements to ensure that your beverage will be complete for consumption, right? So let's try some slogan trivia, right? Starting from this particular slogan. I'm waiting to see the bees in the class who can identify this one. Pringles. Isaac, today you're taking away from Buffalo.
Pringles.
Yes, Pringles. Right? Once you pop, you can't stop. What about this one? It's a tricky one.
Malcolm. Hisense.
Currently, this slogan is known more for Hisense. Right? That's Hisense. Good. What about this one?
Printex.
It's Printex. Who said GTP? Hey. Who said GTP?
I did.
It's not GTP. It's Printex. You're mixing them up, eh?
Masume Shabi.
Yes, that's Printex. And even though the brand is not as popular as GTP now, the slogan still resonates, isn't it?
Yes.
If I ask you GTP slogan right now, nobody can tell me GTP slogan. Does anyone know GTP slogan?
Timeless.
Compare that to Masume Shebi. Compare that to Masume Shebi.
Masume Shebi is better.
It stands out more.
Yeah.
Right? Even though GTP as a brand compared to Printex is a bit stronger. Right? So another good one. Well done, ladies. And the one who remembered GTP's slogan. Excellent. Who was that, by the way, please?
It's me, Doc.
Alimatu. Okay, that means you wear a lot of GTP.
GTP ambassador.
Yeah, GTP ambassador. They should quickly give her a job. I mean, she could remember their slogan. That's big. Right? Let's do another one.
Nike.
You don't know this one, and I don't know what to say to you. Right? And then let's do one last one.
MTN.
Isaac already gave us this one. Everywhere you go.
MTN.
So again, this is a testament of the power of slogans, right?
Look, the GCB, we serve it better. To me, it's a dichotomy. GCB, we serve it better.
It's a seduction, eh?
No, they say we serve it better, but I find it like a dichotomy. It doesn't agree. Like what they do and what they say doesn't match. It's a mismatch.
MTN is not everybody.
What has GCB done to you? Every day, GCB.
So
at least MTN they have a widest coverage, so at least they can boost a bit with everywhere. But GCB, they almost say they serve you better.
Right. Good. Your money. Oh. Good. So Lawrence is asking a very pivotal question here. He says, so Doc, can we say that the success of the slogan is contingent on the ability of the target market to form the association or to even be interested? Yes, it's all about the association. Remember we talked about the nodes. Didn't we talk about them? Didn't we talk about them? The nodes and the what?
Cues.
Cues. Are you sure? No, the nodes, the associative model. We said the information is organized in the minds of the consumer in the form of nodes and what? Nodes and what? Ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember.
Links.
Nodes and what?
Links, Doc.
Links. Right? So without these nodes and links forming the associations, it will be very difficult for the slogan and the name and the logo and symbol to be successful. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Good. That is why to create a strong positioning, you have to get the customer to link a group of these elements together and associate it with your specific offering. or link it to your specific offering. So the more notes you have linked to your offering in the mind of the consumer, the higher the chance that the consumer will remember your brand when they have a need for a product in your specific category. Because for instance, if I take just one particular brand element, like for instance, the color. If I say yellow right now, do you know how many brands in Ghana use the color yellow?
A lot.
A lot of
A lot. Same for red. Same for blue. Right? So, Lawrence, the associations are very important because without the associations, you do not have a brand. In fact, the customer does not even know who you are. So the associations are very important, Lawrence. And you go on to say SRC aspirants using slogans in a community where people vote based on more frivolous reasons. Yeah. That is a whole totally different setting, isn't it? Because here you're trying to market an actual human being in a given setting, which is totally different from marketing a physical product or a service, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Good. So it will not directly translate.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So thank you, Lawrence, for that submission. Isaac says, first in news, best in entertainment. TV3, isn't it? Yeah.
TV3.
Yeah, but currently it's debatable, isn't it?
Very.
Very debatable. So whatever they are doing
tomorrow.
Yeah, so their brand building efforts are not matching what they are communicating. Because it's not enough to just come up with the slogan and create salience, because the salience is where the customer is aware, isn't it? But once we move up to a higher level of the pyramid in terms of performance and imagery, that is where the problem comes in. So they have done a good job of creating the brand awareness at the salience level. But in terms of performance and imagery, TV3 is not first in news and best in entertainment, is it? Is it? Yeah. Right? That is why we say that it is important for a firm that is engaging in brand development to work their way up the customer-based brand equity model through the different levels. It's not enough to clear one level and stay there, is it?
That's true.
Yeah. You have to keep moving and rising higher and higher up until you get to the apex, which is resonance. So creating salience is not just enough. Getting people to know that your slogan is first in news, best in entertainment, and every time they hear that, they associate it with TV3. That's just awareness, and it doesn't help much. Once you've been able to create awareness, it's time to move on to build performance and imagery associations. And then once you're able to achieve that, it is also not enough. You now need to go on and influence consumer judgments and feelings to end up resonating with them. Right? That is why brand building efforts do not end. It's a continuous process because there are certain actions that may even occur along the lifetime of a brand that can end up making them retrogress on the pyramid. Are you aware?
Yes,
Good. So some brands can experience certain circumstances or events that may bring them down from, say, having strong performance and imagery to bringing them down to even risking getting forgotten entirely by consumers. And there are several brands in history that have failed after they have built good performance and imagery and have ended up being totally forgotten by customers. That today, no one even asks about them anymore. Example of such brands, BlackBerry. BlackBerry simply became comfortable when they got to a certain level of the pyramid and they stopped evolving and innovating. Is that a fair assessment?
That's Nokia.
Nokia as well. For Casapadia, their problems were many, Lawrence. Branding is just the tip of the iceberg.
Boardroom wrangling.
No, didn't you say?
Boardroom issues.
Yeah, they had a lot of
With
other
Kasapa.
problems. So for Kasapa, yeah, branding was just...
The Kasapa issue is more of a boardroom issue.
Yeah.
Boardroom wrangling and stuff.
Yeah. Right. So there's a lot. Hey, Sergeant. Yes. Let me tell you a classic one that managed to rise so fast and build a lot of performance and imagery and judgments and feelings, but just went all the way down and people have totally forgotten about them. Who remembers Sony Ericsson and their Walkman phones?
Oh, yeah.
They were so cool.
Yes, Sony Ericsson.
They were so cool. Everybody loved that phone.
Yes.
People
Yes.
were so nuts about it. No, you couldn't say anything negative about it. And it was popular across all age groups. Then they just became comfortable. They were not innovating anymore. They were not doing anything extra anymore. And then out of nowhere, the brand just fell out of salience and people don't even mention them anymore. Totally gone. Right? So that is why it is very important to create these associations. Without the associations and continuous ongoing efforts to maintain these associations, and I cannot emphasize that enough, it's not enough to build the associations. You also have to maintain them consistently. That's why from time to time, you're watching TV and then you see an advert and you ask yourself, hey, so these people are still there. Has it happened to you before?
Yes.
Yeah. And that is necessary because from time to time, the brands have to make sure that those associations that they have created in your mind are alive and functioning. Good. Isaac, churches need brand managers. Isaac, that's a whole different ball game altogether because churches do not run on logic. Churches do not run based on
Holy
logic.
Spirit.
Good. There are other dimensions. Religion in itself is not something that you can easily package and market to somebody. Right? So it's a bit dicey. Unless the church is a business. As has been argued.
Somebody has a prophecy.
That churches are a business to some people, then you can go ahead and do all these branding things we are talking about, because then there are no other dimensions. There's no spirituality, there's nothing, right? Okay, good. So that is for slogans. Now, the next thing we can talk about are URLs, right? And URLs, also commonly referred to as domain names, are those, as we refer to them, internet addresses that specify the locations of various pages on the web, right? Now, any firm that wants to own a particular URL or domain name must go ahead and register it and pay for it. Now, this registration and payment is not permanent. Generally, you have to renew it from time to time. So depending on the package you sign up for, you will have to renew it annually or monthly, right? Now, typically for an existing brand, when it comes to selecting a URL or domain name, it's a no-brainer because they would usually go for a name that is a literal or direct translation of their brand. So a typical example is University of Ghana. Everybody knows our initials are UG, isn't it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So it makes sense that our domain name is www.ug.edu.gh. Right? But in some instances, the firm can decide to introduce some degree of variation, which is also largely dependent on the availability of that domain name. Because sometimes by the time you are ready to register a particular domain name, another organization that has similar brand elements like yours may have already taken that domain name and registered it, right? But generally, domain names are a literal translation of the brand's name. Now, when it comes to domain names, according to VeriSign Inc.'s domain name industry brief, now VeriSign is one of the top firms who deal in the purchase or procurement of domain names. Now, this industry report I am talking about was published by VeriSign, and it's published quarterly. to be able to help us assess the state of domain name registrations at any point in time. Now, the most recent version of the report I have is the one published in the first quarter of 2021, right? And I quickly want to show you that report from which we are taking these excerpts from. So this is the report. Again, I will share it with you in resources so that you can be able to peruse the document in your free time and understand what is going on in terms of the domain name industry. So this is the VeriSign Domain Name Industry Brief. This is volume 18 and it was published in June 2021. Please, can we see that?
Yes,
Doc.
Good.
Yes.
So you see that it gives an executive summary and talks about the number of reported domain names for each of the extensions. So we have .com, .nl, .uk, .net, .tk, .biz, .edu. All of those extensions are reported on here, right? Among other important pieces of information when it comes to domain names. So when you get a document, you can read about it. And the report also details a lot of important information, for instance, regarding information protection for the domain name system, how to encrypt, right? As well as other important issues that have to do with security when it comes to domains, okay? So when you get the documents, just take your time and peruse it, right? To be able to understand generally what is happening in the domain name industry. So like I was saying, back to our lecture, VeriSign's report talked about the fact that the first quarter of 2020 closed with 366.8 million domain name registrations, right? And this represents an increase of 14.9 million or 4.2% year over year, meaning that every year there will be close to 14.9 million new domain names being registered. Now, a lot of these registration that is being done, it's not necessarily being done legitimately. Are you aware?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. And that is why we say that companies need to protect their brands from the unauthorized use of their domain names. Because if this domain name belonging to your brand or having trademark elements from your brand is registered, it becomes very difficult for you as a brand to get that domain name back. If you intend to pursue it, you may have to pay to get it back, which would sometimes cost you an arm and a leg, or go through legal means to seek redress to be able to get your domain name back. And the people who usually perpetuate this act of stealing domain names are referred to as cyber squatters. So when we talk about cyber squatters, what they generally do is cyber squatting or domain squatting, which refers to them registering or using a domain name with bad faith intent to profit from the goodwill of a trademark belonging to someone else. Because usually when you come up with a brand name, as an astute business, you are expected to trademark that brand name. And like I said, when you want to get this brand name back, which legally belongs to you, you may have to use one of two means, either to pay to have it back from these cyber squatters, which they could sometimes sell to you at an inflated price. Because the main idea of registering that domain in the first place was to be able to sell it at a future date for profit. So if you want to pay them for it, you may end up paying an inflated price, which may not be worth it. And if you do not want to pay for it, then you have to go through the judicial system to seek redress. And to be able to do that, there is an organization that has been set up that manages matters of such nature, and they are referred to as the Internet Corporation of Assigned Name and Numbers, or ICANN, right? And they have created this system by which people can go about litigating to have their domain names that have been stolen from them returned back to them. And this system is referred to as the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, which details procedures by which you can go through in order to get back a domain name that has been stolen from you. And the reason why this system is so efficient for people who wish to get their domain names back is that the procedure is very fast. and less expensive. And that can be largely attributed to the fact that you do not require an attorney to initiate the process or to go through the process, right? And once you initiate the process, the disputes are heard by a number of international organizations that have the power to ensure that you get restitution, including the World Intellectual Property Forum, which is one of the arms of the United Nations that help individuals and organizations protect their intellectual property, right? So like I said, it's either by this means or paying the cyber squatters that you can be able to get back any domain name that has been stolen from you. So to be smart, most firms or organizations will go ahead and register all possible domain names using their trademarked brand elements to ensure that when they have the need for such domain name, it will already be in their custody. Please, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, Doc.
Good. So even if they are not ready to use it, they will not leave it lying fallow. They'll register it and keep it until they are ready to forestall any cyber squatter going to register it and then later making them pay back handsomely to receive it for their own use. I thought I heard someone mention my name. Did someone mention my name or no? Okay. So please, do we understand the concept of URLs and that of cyber squatting and domain squatting?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, good. All right. So with that understanding, let's move on to the next set of brand elements, which is brand characters. Now, characters are a special type of brand symbol that takes on human or real life characteristics, right? And they are typically introduced through advertising campaigns to help the firm to be able to properly communicate their message and clearly establish these brand associations we are talking about in the mind of the consumer. They are also sometimes used very strategically when it comes to the design of packages. And that is where you will most often see characters being utilized, right? So when it comes to brand characters, they are designed such that they grab the attention of the target audience, which makes it easy for the firm to be able to build brand awareness for their offering, right? And sometimes, based on how these characters are designed, they are able to break through the clutter of the marketplace. Because with a brand that has a character compared with a brand that does not have a character, the customer, by virtue of the way they are built and human behavior, would always first notice a brand that is presenting a character and a brand that is not. Does that make sense?
Yes, Doc.
Good. Based on the attention-grabbing nature of these characters. And because of how they are designed, they are also very easily transferable to other product categories that belong to the same brand, right? For example, what is the Nestle brand character? What's the Nestle brand character?
The bed, a bed.
It's not just a bed.
In a nest.
A bed in a nest. And you realize that it features on all their products, doesn't it?
Yes.
Good. Which is a testament to the transferability of the brand. And because of the nature of the character and the way it's designed and how the associations have been formed, we have come to relate it directly to the Nestle brand name. Even though Nestle does not have a verifiable slogan that we know of. Does anyone know Nestle's slogan? Does anyone know Nestle's slogan? Nuruddin, do you know Nestle's slogan?
No.
So it's good.
No.
Good life.
Our silence means no.
Good. But Mina says it's good food, good life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's their slogan. But that is not what immediately target audience members associate with the brand, is it?
Yes, Doc.
Yeah, what they associate with the brand is the name Nestle and the bed in the nest, isn't it?
Yes.
Which tells us that depending on how you go about selecting your brand elements and promoting them, some elements will contribute more towards building your brand equity than others. And the strength of these associations are very important if your brand is to remain relevant into the long term. And because of that, you will notice that several brands in history have successfully used these characters, some of which they have created out of nowhere, and some of which are based on real living organisms to be able to successfully build their brands and create unique associations in the minds of consumers, right? So let's quickly do a brand character quiz and see if you identify these characters and their names and the brands that they belong to. So first off, what is the name of this character?
KFC.
What is his name? KFC is the name of the company. What's the name of the character?
Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders, right? And he's associated with the KFC brand. And this character is based on a real life person, isn't it?
Yep.
Good, because Colonel Sanders is actually the one who started the brand. Let's look at another one. Which one is this? What's the name of this character?
Cow.
The Laughing Cow.
Laughing Cow.
Right? And it's synonymous with the name of the brand, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, because it's the Laughing Cow and it's for the Laughing Cow cheese. And this again is based on a real life animal, right? Good. Let's do another one. What's the name of this character?
Hey.
What's the name of this character? She has a name.
It's like Artemis. Sure.
Think again. Think. What's the name of this character? Okay, what brand does this character belong to? Starbucks. So what is her name?
The Starbucks mermaid.
Starbucks mermaid.
Yeah, that's her name.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And we've been eating from them like that.
Why? You see the Ghanaians.
Mean by that?
You see the Ghanaians.
Maybe
something else. Hey.
It's not Starbucks.
Starbucks.
You see, the mermaid is more stylish.
All of a sudden they have see Lawrence said Mami Wata. You see where they've taken the whole thing to. Now it's digressing into something that I can't even answer. Why did all this come? Now if the answer
is not even yet in Ghana.
I am even surprised.
No, you stop eating there. Please, where are you going to eat?
No, but
there are some Starbucks products in Ghana. There are some Starbucks products in Ghana. I've seen their Frappuccino in some shops.
Wow.
Yeah. I think, what did I see? I think at Marina Mall, I saw their Frappuccino, a bottled one over there.
Oh, nice.
Yes. But I thought you said because of the Mami Water, you drink again. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right now. Okay.
Oh, my God. So please, this is the Starbucks mermaid, why? So please, advise yourself accordingly. So that's the name of the character, right? And you realize that all of a sudden, now that people know who the character is, they do not want anything to do with the brand. So this should be a lesson to Starbucks Corporation. Since this video is going to be uploaded on YouTube, I'd like to send a shout out to the Starbucks Corporation. Please, should you decide to set up a branch in Ghana, please consider redesigning your logo. Because if you set up and you don't redesign, they will equate it to Mami Wata. And we all know what that means. It means your brand will not even survive. All right, so that's by the way. Okay, let's look at another character, right? Who is this? Who is this? This one, you have to know his name. You all grew up with him. Hey, you should know. His name is on the
Is it
ship.
Mickey Mouse?
Hey!
Hey, Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
Hey, it's not Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
But it's a monkey, but
Doing our friend about more.
I think it's part of the Mickey Mouse generation.
Please look again. His name is even on his shirt. He's called Coco the monkey.
Coco.
He's called Coco the monkey. And from which product? I think you know the product.
Coco the monkey. Coco Pops.
Yes, Kellogg's Coco Pops. Oh, you people. Right? So these are examples of brand characters.
Wow.
He's called Coco the monkey. And they have
I
characters
didn't
for all
know
of their
Coco the monkey.
cereals. Yeah. So there is what's the name of the tiger? Oh, I've forgotten the name of the tiger. But Kellogg's Frosties. The character for Kellogg's Frosties is a tiger. Are you aware?
Yes.
Yeah. And he has a name too. I've forgotten his name. Oh, please come to me. He has a name. Please, does anyone know his name? Does anyone remember his name? Where are the Dada bees? He's called Tony the Tiger. Yes, good, right? Tony the Tiger. Yeah, Isaac, Tony the Tiger. And then for their Fruit Loops, there's a toucan. He also has a name. And then for the Rice Krispies, what's the name of those characters? Rice Krispies. You should know this one. Kellogg's Rice Krispies. What's the name of the characters? Kellogg's Rice Krispies. What's the name of the characters? You should know them. Hey, you eat the Rice Krispies all the time.
Snap, crackle, and pop.
Snap, crackle, and pop. Thank you. Today, Lawrence is on fire. Lawrence and Isaac.
Right, what are their names again?
Snap, crackle, and pop.
Snap, crackle, and pop.
Nice.
Those triplets on the Rice Krispies box. Yeah. And then the Fruit Loops has a bird. It's a toucan. It's called Sam. So Sam the toucan is Kellogg's Fruit Loops. Tony the Tiger is Kellogg's Frosties. Snap, Crackle, and Pop is Kellogg's Rice Krispies. And then Coco the monkey is Kellogg's Coco Pops. Yes. Right? And the interesting thing is you will realize that these characters, because of their design, resonate very well with younger audiences, isn't it? This is that they are struggling to remember. Ask a kindergartner or a primary school kid. They'll tell you all, depending on their level of exposure. If you're like some of us who grew up drinking what's the name of that porridge?
Hausa cocoa.
Hausa cocoa was my favorite with akala. Yeah.
And Moli cocoa.
Yeah, Mori cocoa. Like you don't know Tony, and I'll not blame you. Yes, I'll not blame you because Charlie, we are all from there. But the DBs like Lawrence and Isaac and Barford, they know the thing. So they will tell us. I'm sure when they have children, their children too will be able to tell us all. So my Mori cocoa squad, we did.
Madam, we did.
Right. So that's for brand characters. And you notice that there are so many of them around. Some firms in recent times have not been very successful at creating some of these characters. And you realize that the moment they realize the characters are not working, they just withdraw them, do a rebranding, and then go with elements that are more favorable towards the target audience. So that once again goes to prove that not all of these brand elements will be successful for every brand and their offering when it comes to brand building. So the choice of brand elements has to be done strategically, depending on the objective that the firm wants to achieve. So with that in mind, let's move on to packaging. Now, packaging again is another very strong brand element that firms use to build brand equity. And when we talk about packaging, it is the activity of designing and producing containers or wrappers for specific product offerings. Now, packaging is not just about the container, right? It could also be about the design of the components of the product, like in real estate. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Yes, so packaging is not just about the container or the wrapper. It's also about designing the constituents and the components of the product offering. So from the perspective of both the firm and the consumer, packaging must, one, help to identify the brand. And I don't know those who are real estate enthusiasts here, but when you look at the work of specific architects, you can tell the differences, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. When you look at a house designed by a particular architect, you can tell that it's this architect's work and vice versa, right? So that is a key example of using packaging to identify specific brands. Again, packaging usually features the other brand elements like the brand name and the brand logo and the brand characters. So clearly, packaging is a means of identifying the brand. It's also a means of conveying descriptive and persuasive information, right? And this usually comes in the form of the product ingredients, isn't it?
Yes.
Good. Which will usually help us to be able to describe the product and its constituents and what it's made of. Now, if it's the product that is used for certain purposes, you'll realize that firms will go ahead and include information regarding how the product can be used to persuade the customer to go ahead and buy it. For instance, certain kinds of milk come in packaging that shows recipes for how you can use the milk to prepare a dessert, for instance. Are you aware?
Yes, though.
Good. That's an example of persuasive information. Again, these days, packaging, especially for breakfast food items, will come with information regarding how to go about preparing it and how short of a time it will take to prepare it, isn't it?
Yes, Doc.
Good. All of these are information that are not just descriptive, but also persuasive to get the customer to actually go ahead and choose that particular brand instead of the others. Next, packaging is also supposed to facilitate product transportation and protection. And you realize that some products, by virtue of the way they are designed, will not be able to be properly transported or stored without the packaging that they come in. True or false?
That's true.
So imagine Ideal milk was kept in a paper bag. We won't be able to transport it, let alone protect it, is it? Will we?
But Doc, there are other milks that are in paper.
Look at the type of paper.
Okay.
It's not a paper bag paper, is it?
Okay.
It's thick cardboard folded in a particular way and insulated on the inside with some kind of metal wrapping, isn't it, Mida?
Yeah.
Good.
And it has a bit of rubber.
Good. Right? So that means that packaging, no matter how it is designed, must not only facilitate the transportation of the product, but also protect it from going bad. Packaging also assists in at-home storage. Because once you buy the product from the store, you need to find a way of storing it in your house until you're ready to use it. And you'll also notice that these days, with more innovative forms of packaging, they aid product consumption. Now, this is an age-old concept that has been transferred from the food service industry, where they put the food in a takeaway pack and they add a plastic spoon to help you to be able to eat the food wherever you go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. However, more innovative designs are coming out for other forms of product aside food that aid consumption in various circumstances. And we will see some examples of those momentarily. So let's look at some unique packaging designs that serve all these purposes that we have talked about in terms of describing and providing descriptive and persuasive information, identifying the brand, facilitating transportation and protection, as well as assisting at home storage and aiding consumption. So the first one is this product. What is it trying to do? What is this packaging trying to do?
Your coffin will be bigger.
Yes.
So it's achieving the objective of conveying persuasive information, isn't it? They're trying to persuade you to stay clear of it if you want to end up in a coffin, in a bigger one, like Clancy said. Please, does that make sense?
Yes, though.
Good. Let's look at another one. What is this packaging meant to achieve?
Tea is meant to be taken out when you are ready to drink.
Oh, Clancy, no. Think of it in terms of what we just talked about regarding conveying persuasive information and identifying the brand and protecting the brand and aiding consumption. Yes, Lawrence, aiding consumption. Because it's very easy to take it off the rack, isn't it?
Yes, extra.
Yeah, it's very easy to stick it into your cup and it will hang on the edge and you can easily take it off. Isaac says super bougie. This is just practicality, right? A unique branding. So you realize that if such a tea bag was being sold in Ghana, compared to the ones we normally know, like the Liptons, that come squashed into the bag. You know how Lipton comes, right?
Yes, dog.
Good. When you open the box, everything is in one bag, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it, I wouldn't want to call it foil, because it's thinner than foil, isn't it? It's plastic, but it's insulated somehow, and all the tea bags are in it. So compared to this one, if you were the buyer, which one would you pick? The Lipton or this one?
This one.
Yeah. Right? Unless you have some kind of affinity towards the Lipton brand name, which would be a totally different discussion. But if it's based off packaging alone, this is the brand that may be preferred. Let's look at another one. This is a shoebox / carrier bag in one. Have you noticed?
Yes.
So this is not only protecting the product, it is also aiding in transportation. It's also aiding in storage. Yeah, Isaac, it's really nice. Right? And the concept is called the clever little bag. Because it's not just for transporting the sneakers, but it's also for protecting the sneakers once you get to your destination, and also for storing them. Right? And then let's look at another one that has become very popular in recent times. The wine on the go. Has anyone seen any of them in Ghana before? Mira, have you seen any in Ghana before?
No, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, but the communion one comes in those small cups, right? I said the communion wine comes in those small cups. These ones are actual full glasses of wine. Meant for consumption on the go. So but this is how they come. And they come in the different ways. So if you want dry red wine, a rosé, dry white wine, or sangria, you buy it like this and you slot it in your bag. Right? And there are so many wineries that are producing this in Europe and in the United States. But no one has really thought of bringing them to Ghana before. And I know why. If anybody decides to serve this at any event, be it a wedding or a funeral, Isaac, they will all disappear in the twinkle of an eye. If people can go to funerals and parties and put large bottles of club beer in their handbag, why wouldn't they be able to carry these glasses and put them in their handbags and take them home? I put it to you, this question.
It's even good for reuse. Somebody will stock a kitchen with it.
Thank you. But imagine me that having a wedding reception and you are serving these, or a funeral. People will just be requesting and putting it in their bags, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yes. They'll just be putting it in their bags. Once the bag is full, they'll take it home. Right. So in our context, it may be a bit problematic to work with. But like you guys say, Shelley, you said? Shelley,
I said those 7 will we bring half and keep half.
Thank you.
Don't I said those 7.
Right? So unless you're buying it for use in your own home, for personal consumption, but if you go and use it for a public event, nah. right? But it's very, like Mida said, it's very conducive for home use. And it will save a lot of people from opening a full bottle of wine or rosé perhaps that they will not be able to finish. But if it is just a glass, it's convenient. You just take the covering off and you have your glass of wine, you drink it, and you don't have to open a whole bottle of wine. Because I hope that makes sense.
Yes, does.
Good. So these are all innovative packaging designs that are coming up that are meant to achieve all the objectives we talked about, including communicating persuasive information, aiding in consumption, aiding in storage, as well as aiding in the protection and transportation of the products, right? So that is for packaging. Now, next we can talk about jingles, which are becoming less and less popular by the day. And jingles generally are musical messages written around the brand. And unlike the characters that we talked about, they are not as transferable to other product categories, right? However, they play a very key role, especially where they are expertly written using catchy hooks and choruses. And before we proceed, I want to ask this question. Has anyone heard a jingle that has some catchy words that you did not consciously listen to, but at a subsequent time after hearing it, you find yourself singing it because of the catchy phrases in it? Has anyone had that experience before? You had a jingle in passing, and then ultimately at some point you found yourself just singing it. Mida, any example?
Take your girl child to school.
Thank you. Everybody was singing it because it was so catchy. And it was the trick or the hook was in the repetition of school. Do you realize?
Yes, though.
Yes, though.
Take your girl child to school. Mama send her to school. Papa send her to school. Send your the emphasis was on school, 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 school. And it's stuck in people's minds that today it's when you wake them up in their sleep, they'll sing the song for you. Isaac, you said what, Mama?
Hey, Isaac.
The one I remember is the Mahama Onapo. Do you remember that song?
Onapo, yes, please.
Mama Onapo, Mama Onapo. Because they kept repeating it, and the hook was just funny. It stuck in people's minds. Lauren says Baby Shark. Yes. Because of the repetitive nature of the song and the catchy hooks and phrases. Right? I see another one. Star Assurance Boda Chihumbai. I haven't really heard that one. Lawrence, can you give us a demo? I haven't heard that one.
Star Assurance Boda Chihumbai.
Please, has anyone heard that song? No one has heard it. Okay. Then maybe Lawrence, you are one of the few people that that particular hook appealed to. I remember I also fell prey to a particular hook like that when I was in secondary school. By then, Gino tomato paste had been introduced afresh. And they had this advert. Who had heard that song before? Gino, that's my name. Who has heard that song?
Hey, I've not heard that.
You've not heard it? Oh, okay.
No, but Gino truly cares.
That one too. Thank you. That's the more recent one. Right? And then there's an older one too. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but let me try. Like we cushion you for life. Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
Yes. You heard that one. That's another excellent jingle, right? And even though the man falling off the mountainside, good. That's Glyco. And the jingle matched the song perfectly because he fell off the mountainside and he fell on a cushion.
Ah.
Cargo. Yeah, Lawrence. Right? So these are all jingles with catchy hooks and choruses that have become permanently registered in our minds, right? So regardless of the circumstances, as soon as we hear the hook or the chorus, we can pick the song, like we just did in the Glyco example, and like we did with the Send Your Girl Child to School example, among others, right? And these jingles, because of how catchy they are and how permanently they are able to register in the mind of listeners at a very fast pace, are very good when you want to build brand salience and awareness. So these jingles would usually be created with the brand name and the brand slogan repeatedly over and over again, being sung in the form of the jingle in clever and amusing ways, so that it will register in the mind of the consumer. Like we said, Glyco, we're pushing you for life. That's the name and the slogan of the organization. Star Assurance, Baudachi Home Buying, that's the name and the brand meaning they want to communicate, right? Send Your Girl Child to School is all about educating the girl child, and we wanted to create awareness for everybody to send their girl child to school. So that's the power of jingles, right? And we have all been able to demonstrate right now that they indeed are a worthy brand element to include as part of your brand development strategy.
The last one.
Yes, Mida, go ahead. So the hook here was what? Horonsa, isn't it?
Yes.
So they just kept saying the Horonsa over and over and again. In the end, the chorus said Horonsa, right? Very good one, Mida. So you can see how jingles, among all the other elements, can be creatively combined in various ratios and proportions as part of brand development strategies to achieve brand building objectives of building resonance. And like Mida just sang the song, the campaign has been over for some time now. Occasionally you will see the advert on TV every now and then, but we still have the message engraved in our minds because of the catchy nature of the jingle and how much it is stuck in our heads. Right, Naomi? Okada, Naomi. Yeah, and this is a one. Right? So based on the understanding we have about the pivotal role of each of these elements and how a creative and artistic and scientific combination of these can yield unique brand building efforts, let's look at some of the criteria for choosing brand elements. Now, we realize that for most of the organizations we have talked about, certain brand elements that they utilize stand out more than the others. And for some organizations, a combination of these brand elements are more popular than others, right? So what are we saying? In terms of choosing brand elements, the firm must first of all think about the memorability. How easy are these elements to be recognized and recalled? And in that case, it means that looking at the elements you have at your disposal, you need to choose those ones that help you to become easily recognizable and easy to recall in any purchase situation, like the jingles and the slogan and the brand name and the brand logo. Leilati, you said, what of the ones that tell a story? How do they tell the story? Because the storytelling would usually combine a number of the brand elements. Leilati, are you there? So in the Glyco advert, for instance, the storyline was about a man who was traveling along a road using a car that he was driving very fast. And then along the way, he had an accident. He flew off the side of the road and then he fell. But until he could fall, before he could fall and hurt himself, he fell on a cushion. And this particular cushion was called Glyco. And then the jingle comes in and says, Glyco, we cushion you for life, right? So the choice of the character, being the man falling off the cliff and being saved by Glyco, which was the cushion, are all elements of the brand that have been put together or combined artistically to build brand equity. So for the longest time, people thought that Glyco was the only insurance company in Ghana. Are you aware? When it came to
So
insurance,
that's true.
yeah, people thought Glyco was the only insurance company in Ghana, but there were others. Right? And currently, the others have stepped up their marketing so much that now Glyco is not as powerful in the industry as they used to be. But at that point in time, the objective that they wanted to achieve was successfully achieved. So, Leilatu, I hope that answers your question. Right? So in that regard, we are saying in choosing brand elements, we have to think about their memorability. These brand elements have to be memorable. And then they have to be meaningful in terms of being descriptive and persuasive to get the customer to choose our brand over those of our competitors. Again, the brand elements chosen must be likable. We all saw what happened when people found out that the Starbucks logo was, in fact, had the character of the Starbucks mermaid. All of a sudden, what happened? People didn't like it anymore and didn't want to be associated with it. Am I right?
Yes, Doc.
Good. So in our context, that logo or symbol is not exactly likable. And that is why we are saying that in choosing brand elements, firms have to be careful to choose elements that are likable and which present rich visual and verbal imagery that is aesthetically pleasing. Again, like we identified, brand elements must be easily transferable within and across product categories, across geographic boundaries and cultures. Now, this Starbucks mermaid in the Western culture is totally fine. But the moment we brought it into our culture where people are highly religious, what happened? There was a strong dislike, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, Doc.
Meaning that if Starbucks is planning on introducing their line of products in our context, the logo that they have now may not be fully transferable. Hence the importance of having a transferable set of brand elements. And this is exemplary in how Yaz has been able to transfer their brand name across a lot of product categories. We have Yaz washing powder, Yaz toothpaste, Yaz toothbrush, Yaz sanitary towels, Yaz baby wipes, Yaz kitchen towels, Yaz toilet paper. Should I go on?
A lot of Yazes.
There's Yaz everywhere. Right? And that is because the brand name and the elements are easily transferable. You realize that their entire brand elements are the letters Yaz and then the swirl behind it. There's no actual symbol or logo or that goes with it, is it? It's just the ribbon and then the letters Yaz written on it. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they can slap it on everything in any product category. I'll be surprised if I see Yaz TV.
Very soon. Collaboration.
You know, there's NASCO conflicts, right?
Really?
Yes, there's NASCO conflicts. Those who watch DSTV, you might have seen the adverts on DSTV before. There's NASCO conflicts. When I saw it initially, I was confused because I didn't know NASCO to be into food, right? But there's NASCO conflicts. Even though I don't know how successful it was, it is evidence of how the name can be transferable. Please, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, Doc.
Yes, yes.
Good. All right. Now, aside transferability, the name should also be adaptable, such that it should be flexible enough that the brand should be able to update it whenever they want to, or change it in any way or form without losing the initial brand equity that the elements have. Please, am I making sense?
Yes, Doc.
So you realize that in the rebranding of Ghana Commercial Bank, in changing their brand elements, they maintain the eagle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it was not the same eagle that was in their previous logo. You remember the eagle in their previous logo had a lot of detail in it and was wearing the black star as a chain.
Yeah.
Good. But the eagle in the new logo was fully yellow, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't see any specific details. So it was just the outline and everything was filled in with the gold or the yellow. That is an example of an adaptable brand element. So they didn't find it difficult updating it to reflect their new direction. And we could still relate with the brand because they still have the eagle in it. However, it was an updated form of the eagle that we are used to. Although some people will argue that the service delivery is yet to catch up with the rebranding. Nonetheless, it was a step in the right direction. Right? And then finally, your brand element should be protectable. And this is very, very important because as we will learn very soon in the legal issues that come up when we are considering brand elements, as well as what we have learned from the concept of cyber spotting and domain spotting when it comes to URLs. If you do not seek legal protection against your brand elements and they are taken away from you, especially after you have invested significant effort in building your brand equity, it is the worst thing that can happen to you. Are you aware?
Yes.
Yeah, because imagine starting all over after all the investments that you have made. So you must choose brand elements that are protectable. And protectable in that sense means that they have to meet certain criteria. And you must end up with a set of brand elements combined in a manner that has not already been done by an existing firm or business to avoid any form of litigation. Right? But once you are able to select the appropriate brand elements and protect them, you are well on your way towards achieving significant brand equity using specifically designed marketing programs. So now that you've understood this, when it comes to choosing brand elements, particularly in mixing and matching each of the individual brand elements that we have talked about, it's important to look at the strengths of each of these brand elements along the different criteria we have talked about in terms of memorability, meaningfulness, likability, transferability, adaptability, and protectability, right? So you realize that some elements do well on certain criteria than others. For instance, when it comes to protectability, you realize that brand names and URLs are generally good, but have their limits, isn't it? Good. However, when it comes to logos and symbols, characters, slogans, and jingles, they are excellent when it comes to protectability, isn't it?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
However, packaging and signage can be what? Closely copied. So that means that if you are selecting brand elements and your main focus or one of the main focuses you have is to be able to protect your brand elements, then you need to look at the ones that have an excellent means of communication and combine them with other elements that are not so good when it comes to protection. Sorry, I said communication. Pardon me. Does that make sense?
Yes, Doc.
Good. And that is why it does not make business sense to choose one particular brand element and run with it. The firm benefits more and is able to protect its brand identity and brand equity when they utilize a combination of brand elements. Given that, like I just mentioned, the elements perform differently when it comes to the different criteria for selecting brand elements. And like we've seen, when it comes to protectability, some elements perform better than others. And the same goes for adaptability and transferability. For instance, under adaptability, brand name is very difficult to adapt. Whereas logos and symbols can be easily adapted or redesigned, like we just saw in the GCB example. Characters can also be sometimes redesigned, like we saw in the GCB example. Slogans and jingles can also be modified, like we've seen with the GCB example. Right? Likewise, packaging and signage. After GCB completed their rebranding, they changed all the signage at their different branches, didn't they?
Yes, Doc.
Good. But they couldn't change their name. They are still Ghana Commercial Bank. Even though the logo presents it in an acronym form, they are still Ghana Commercial Bank, which attests to the difficulty of adapting brand names and URLs. Right? And the same goes for the other criteria. So once you get the opportunity, kindly sit down and look at each of the different criteria in each of the brand elements and how they perform with regards to each of the criteria. This will help you to fully appreciate the need to mix and match brand elements when it comes to building brand equity for various firms. Good. So now that we have discussed this, let's look at some legal branding considerations. Now, the legal branding considerations strategically rely on the criterion of protection to communicate the importance of brand owners taking the necessary steps to protect the brand elements that they have selected to represent their brand. Now, when we talk about a brand element and legal protection for it, it can largely be obtained by means of a trademark. So whenever a particular brand selects certain elements to represent their brand, they need to take the necessary steps to engage in what we refer to as trademarking, where they register the elements and the way they have been combined in the way they have been combined to represent their brand and their brand alone. So when we talk about trademarking, it is defined as any fanciful, arbitrary, distinctive, and non-descriptive mark, word, letter, number, design, or picture that denominates and is affixed to goods and sometimes services. And it is an inherently distinctive trade symbol that identifies a product or service from a particular source. So you realize that people will always go ahead and trademark certain elements, including combinations of those we have talked about, to represent specific products and services. Sometimes products and services that they are yet to even produce for consumption. Are you aware?
Yes.
Good. So celebrities will always trademark their names and the names of their children and ideas that they are still firming up to be able to ensure that while they are going through the thought process or while their children are still young and cannot produce goods and services using their name, those names are protected or those brand elements are protected from being stolen or taken by other people. So with regard to the nature of brand elements and the pivotal role they play in building brand equity, we are saying that firms need to carefully manage their trademarks. And managing trademarks begins with obtaining them in the first place to ensure that their brand assets are adequately protected. Because if not, anyone can obtain the rights to those brand elements in the way that they are being utilized and combined by your brand and use it for their own products and services, and there is nothing you can do about it. And there's evidence of this happening several times in history with a lot of the very popular brands that we are aware of, because they failed to do the needful and trademark specific brand elements as they related to the product offerings in question. So how do firms go about protecting their brands and their brand assets? The first way they can do so is by guarding against counterfeit and imitator brands. Now you will realize that counterfeit and imitator brands are usually those brands that try to produce similar products and services that are comparable, if not almost equal, to that of the brand in question. And to protect against counterfeit or imitator brands, the firm has to take necessary steps to trademark each and every element of their brand as it relates to the product or service. So you realize that firms will go beyond trademarking brand elements like name, symbol, character, slogan, and even trademark specific aspects of other elements we have talked about, like packaging and URLs. And without doing this, there is no way of stopping these copycat brands or imitator brands who will sometimes mimic your original branded product or service to a T. A typical example is what the Western and European luxury brands have been going through with the Chinese knockoffs. Are you aware?
Yes.
Some sometimes the products are so similar that you cannot differentiate between them. You cannot tell which one is the imitation and which one is the actual designer item. Another example is what we can see on our screens right now. Everybody knows the traditional Nutella spread. But you can see the counterfeit and imitator brands next to it. And if you do not really know the Nutella brand well, you may end up picking up one of these from the shelf thinking that that is what you are buying. True or false?
That's true.
Especially look at the Cremosa one. They've copied a lot of the brand elements, including how the name has been written, the packaging of the bottle, even the label, how the label has been designed. They copied the whole thing and make just minute, negligible changes. For instance, the Nutella has one yellow flower near the glass, isn't it? They chose to put one pink flower near the glass and then one pink flower on the other side. But like I said, the differences are so negligible that they are very easy to ignore. Perhaps the one that you will not be able to clearly say is a direct copycat is the choco cream one, given that the labeling is significantly different. And then the cover is also very different from the original. However, the shape of the bottle is the same, isn't it? So with that, we are saying that if you don't protect your brand, you run the risk of having counterfeit and copycat and imitator brands replicating your product for sale. And the good thing is at least these brands manage to change their name. For some of the counterfeiters and the imitators, they will use the same name that you are using, which makes it even worse. Right? So one legal consideration that the firm has to make when it comes to protecting their branding assets, is in relation with counterfeiting and imitator brands. Again, they need to think about trademark issues concerning names. Now, it is one thing to want to register your name as a trademark, and another thing to register the trademark and fail to be able to declare that it is your unique name. Because if you do not provide adequate trademark protection for the brand name that you use, they may end up becoming legally declared as generic. And this is where you do not do the trademarking in time. And so many other brands begin to use the same name. A typical example is Vaseline. Usually when we hear Vaseline, we associate it with a particular brand of petroleum jelly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. However, the owners failed to trademark Vaseline. So as I'm speaking to you, Vaseline has become the generic name for all petroleum jelly in that category. The same goes for escalator. When you hear escalator, you just think it's a generic name for the stairs that go up and down, isn't it?
Yes, Doc.
Good, but it did not start out as generic. It was an actual brand name that a manufacturer gave to a product that they created. But because they failed to take the necessary steps to trademark the name, it became synonymous with all products of that nature, being staircases that move people up and down, right? So depending on the kind of name that you create and the kind of product you associate it with, based on what the legal system says, you may or may not be eligible to trademark it. And when it comes to trademarking names, the legal system or legislature presents eligibility criteria for a particular name, which determine whether or not a firm can trademark it as theirs or they may not. And this appears in descending order, from categories including fanciful names to arbitrary names to suggestive names to descriptive names and then to generic names. So for instance, when we talk about fanciful names, we are talking about made up words with no inherent meaning. And they are the best names that you can trademark. Because given that they are fanciful and they are made up, there is no way that anyone else can lay claim to that name. So they are very easy to trademark. However, beyond fanciful, we have arbitrary names that are actual words but are not associated with the product. So you can be able to register it such that you associate that word with your product and register the trademark as such. So a typical example is camel antiseptic. Does that make sense?
Yes, so.
The word camel is an animal that exists. So you can't say you're going to trademark the word camel, can you? But if you use the name camel to create some arbitrary brand name, like we have the camel antiseptic, it is easy to trademark it, isn't it?
Yes, so.
Good. Now the next level after that is the suggestive names, which are actual words that are evocative of product features or benefits. A typical example is Duracell. This is evocative of the durability of the cell, which is another word for battery. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Doc.
Good. Another example of that is Energizer. It's evocative of the performance of the battery, isn't it? That it's an energizer.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, Doc.
It provides energy. Good. Now, beyond that, the next level is descriptive brand names, which are common words protected only with secondary meaning. So you can't go and trademark pizza because pizza is a type of food that everybody eats. But you can take it to the next level by providing a descriptive that gives it a secondary meaning, which you can trademark. So in Ghana here, we cannot say we are trademarking pizza, but we can trademark Papa's Pizza, isn't it?
Yes, Doc.
Because it has secondary meaning, because it's Papa's specific pizza. Then we have Eddie's Pizza, then Cheesy Pizza. All of these are descriptive names because of the secondary meaning they have beyond just pizza as a food item. Now, the most difficult names to trademark are the generic names. And these are words that are synonymous with the product category. And you can often see this taking place in the pharmaceutical industry, isn't it?
Yes, Doc.
Yes,
Good. So the generic name, for instance, can be paracetamol. But we have different brands of paracetamol, don't we?
Panadol.
Yes, please.
We have Panadol. And we have other brands, some from the US, right? Another generic product we can talk about is acetaminophen. But we have different brands of acetaminophen, isn't it? Including Tylenol.
Yes, Doc.
Good. The same goes for Brufen. And the same goes for aspirin. Aspirin is the generic name, but we have different variants of aspirin. The same for all manner of drugs that we use at the moment. Kleenex, again, is the generic name for paper tissues. Are you aware?
Yes, Doc.
Good. Because they were the first company to manufacture paper tissues. However, today there are so many different brands of paper tissue. But if someone says, get me a Kleenex, you automatically know that they are asking you to give them a paper tissue. True or false?
True, Doc.
True.
So to enhance your chances of being able to trademark your brand name, you have to make sure that it is closer to the top of the hierarchy that we are talking about, starting from fanciful and working your way down all the way to generic, because it makes it easier for you to protect your assets when you have a name designed using the hierarchy and the elements closer to the top of the pyramid, including more fanciful, arbitrary, and suggestive names than more descriptive and generic names. Okay. Then finally, we can talk about trademark issues concerning packaging, which are very common. Now, looking at these two brands and their packaging, which one would you say is the original and which one would you say is the copycat brand? I want to see how many of you can. Which one would you say is the original? Which one would you say is the copycat? Look very closely.
The one down.
The one down is what?
The original.
Okay, and then the one up?
Is the copycat.
Okay, how did you come by that conclusion?
I think the one up is looking like how Vortex is looking at.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But the one down, no, I've not seen much of this.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Shirley. I like where your analysis is coming from. Right? Does anyone have any other contribution regarding which one they think is the original and which one they think is the copycat? Okay, so when it comes to this trademark issues concerning packaging, what we need to be cognizant of is that in terms of packaging, names and graphic designs are very legally defensible than shapes and colors, right? So when it comes to the issue of legal protection, basing your legal protection or trademarking on color is very complicated and difficult to defend because, like we mentioned, there are different organizations that use similar colors. And the color wheel is just one. There are only so many ways you can vary the color wheel because there are three main primary colors that are mixed into different shades, right? So it's very easy for you to trademark something like a name and graphic design than shape and color. Now that brings me to what Shirley just said. You will notice that the shape in the bottle at the bottom is fairly unique compared to the shape of the bottle at the top. Do you agree?
Yes.
Good. Likewise, the name. The name at the bottom looks more, I don't know how to explain it, but the name at the bottom compared to the name at the top, the one at the bottom looks more authentic than the one at the top.
More detailed,
Good.
sophisticated.
Good. So in fact, Shirley is right. The one at the bottom is a European water brand, and that is the original. And the one at the top is a water brand that showed up briefly on the Ghanaian scene. I don't know if it is still being sold.
It is.
Well, this is where they got the inspiration from, Shirley.
Oh, okay.
So should the company decide to take them on, based on what I just talked about in terms of packaging, what can they sue them for in terms of infringement?
In the graphic design.
The graphic design, good. It seems they have copied it almost exactly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
They've copied it, so we can sue them on the graphic design. What else can we sue them on? There's another thing we can sue them on.
Is it a name?
The name.
Oh, okay.
They were not even creative. They just removed the I and put AE there.
Yes.
But it can be pronounced the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of them can be pronounced as Vitel. So this is a typical example of trademark issues that will come up in terms of packaging, right? So the lesson here is that you cannot design a brand using various elements and utilize it in your marketing programs extensively if you have not taken the necessary steps to get some kind of legal protection by way of trademark for your brand elements, which ultimately become your brand assets the moment you put them together in the manner that you do to utilize in your marketing programs. So brand elements, ladies and gentlemen, based on our discussion today, are a pivotal aspect of building brand equity. Because without having brand elements to utilize as part of your marketing programs, you cannot be able to accurately pursue the building blocks of the customer-based brand equity model to achieve the resonance that you are looking for, to guarantee your brand value, not just in the short term, but into the long term for all stakeholders involved, including you, the firm yourselves, and your customers. Mida says Volvic and Voltic. Well, Volvic is significantly different from Voltic. When you look at their overall utilization of brand elements, you will notice that even their designs are different. Have you realized, Mida?
Yes, Doc.
Yeah. The packaging, the choice of colors, good. Yeah. You realize that it's significantly different, right? So there's not very much to go on if you want to take the other on for stealing your brand asset, right? Because each of them have made a significant effort to stand out against their competitor. So with that, we've come to the end of our session for today in discussing the nature of brand elements and the choice of brand elements.